Hey guys, for today we have this. It's another Tecumseh engine for a teardown. Why? Because this one again also has a bent crankshaft. You may not recognize this in its current state as I've pilfered a few things off it, but this is the same engine from the cursed Murray that we found out had a bent crankshaft. As you can see, there's no carburetor, there's no intake manifold, there's no exhaust. They've all been pilfered for use on other engines. Plus, I've also pulled the spark plug and removed the flywheel. I needed a few of the items. So we're gonna pull this one all the way apart because, as I said, this crankshaft is no good. As a refresher, here's how we found it in the previous video. See that? That wobble? A nice little wobble. This crank is bent on this engine. That's why the flywheel key was sheared. Whoever owned this engine before, he hit something and completely knocked the flywheel, bent the crank. This engine's junk. So first things first, we'll get the coil off, we'll get the PCV out, then we'll work on the valves, get this bracket off, drain the oil, which is brand new because I've never used this engine. We tried to start it, found out that the timing was off because the key was sheared. So I went to put a new key on, and when I was tightening down the flywheel, I flipped it over just to see, just to make sure. And that's when we saw, oh, the crankshaft is also bent. Great. So this engine was retired from it. I'll use some of the parts, maybe, in other engines. Maybe if I get a blown block. Well, here's another one. And I know that this engine should be good. Well, this engine should be good. I don't see why it wouldn't be, but I guess since we're going to be cracking into it, we can see the condition of the bore, we can see the condition of the piston, and we can see the condition of the sump. And this time, I don't really want to do a repeat of this. There we go. And this time I don't want to do a repeat of the last teardown because I actually want to save the sump as this is a 4.5 horse engine. This is a Tecumseh LV148 engine. What designation? I'm not 100% sure, but it's a 4.5 horsepower Tecumseh engine. And these are actually decent engines. Sure, they're a bit of a pain to work on, but overall they're decent engines. Anyway, enough of the banter. Let's crack into this thing. Right. So I have to make a correction. Here's the correct engine information. I found the cover. I thought it was an LV148EA, but it's actually an LEV105 that was manufactured in 2003. So fairly long life, 21 years, considering last year it did not run, and that was when I did try to get it to run. So I guess 21 years before it met its end and was torn down. 172cc, 4.5 horse engine, previously from Yardworks. And now, because of the cursed Murray, it's dead. Right, so let's remove the engine control bracket. It's 2 3/8 bolts. There, now the bracket will come away. We'll remove the spade connector off the coil. Okay, first part's gone. Let's get this coil off. 1/4 inch. There we go. Coil's removed. Let's crack open these valves. 5/16 opens those. There we go. Valves look good. Looks like one of them's open. We'll get back to these in a second. We'll pop off this PCV and then we'll pop the head before we take the valves out, because we can't take the valves out without taking the head off first. So just rotate it back around. Okay, so let's get this PCV off. There we go. PCV is free. There we go. The PCV valve is free. Now let me just release it out of the vise, quickly drain the oil, then we'll crack the head open. Take the little dipstick tube out, and we'll pour the oil back whence it came from. Oops. There we go. That was a quick oil draining, and I only made a tiny mess. I only made a tiny mess this time. But as you can see, the vast majority of the oil was recovered. Okay, so that minor oil spill has been taken care of. So let's get this head off. Right, let's pop this head. That came off easy. Wow, holy carbon. Look at that carbon. Wow, it's a lot of carbon buildup. Must be an old engine overall. Yeah, never mind. I was about to say that valve looks funny in that seat. So I wonder actually what happened here. Look at that. That's really interesting. Did it blow out here? I'm actually starting to wonder about that valve now. But that... Maybe it might be just me. Maybe it's just my angle. Maybe it is perfectly fine. This seems a little concerning. Actually, it seems a lot concerning. I mean, the head gasket doesn't seem blown. But weird. Maybe the one of these bolts wasn't very tight though. So that could have also been one of the issues. Right, so let's get these valves out then. Well, the valve doesn't seem bent. Exhaust valve came out really easy. There we go. Now let's get the sump open. And that is 6 3/8 bolts. Right, now the fun part. Getting this off. First, I'm going to grind this down. Try to take off any rust. That way, hopefully it comes off a little bit easier. All right, I got my safety shades on. Now to grind this down. Preferably with the proper disc, not with this one. It's a cutting disc. Okay, now let's grind it down. There we go. That looks a lot better. Hopefully it comes off easier. I'll spray it with some lubricant. That way, hopefully it'll also slide easier. I pulled this out, the drain plug, and someone had decided to use red Loctite on it. Yeah, you can see the remnants out there. You can see the remnants on the rim of it. Why would they Loctite it? That's just silly. Anyway, let me just quickly clean off my bench here so we can get the engine out of the vise, put it down here, and we can get it cracked open and see about getting that piston out and taking a look at the board and seeing the condition that's in. Right, so I'll be right back. Hey, look at that, guys. Look what I found. A red subscribe button. If you made it this far into the video, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget, give it a thumbs up. Comment below. I love to read your comments, and I try to reply to as many of them as I can, especially the early ones. All right, guys, back to the video. Hopefully we don't have a repeat like last time and the sump cracks. I would like to save this sump. 4.5 horse. Not quite as common as the 3 and 3.5 horsepower engines. Let's get the puller on. It's time on the fat parts. Oh my goodness. Finally, I get the opportunity to have one basically just pull, well, at least start to pull right off. That was nice. That was a nice treat. Right, so now I have to give it a little bit of torque to be able to pull this one off. So let me grab the proper socket. I believe it's 3/4. I think this is one of the nifty things I was able to 3D print. Socket holder for 1/2-inch drive sockets. It's pretty nice. Oh, here's the 3/4.
Oh, you're on.
I am. Ciao. Get a little bit of lube on there. All right, so it looks like I'm going to have to give it a couple shots with the hammer. Pardon the heater. It is a little chilly today. The wind is really howling out there too. Sure you can hear it. Let's give it a few shots. Hopefully it'll loosen up a bit. Nope, but it sent some nuts loose. And it looks like the oil pump's coming apart again. One day I'd like to get it out without this craziness happening. Yep, still coming. Almost there, actually. And there we go. She's popped free. I heard the seal pop. Nice. And there we go. It's free! And it didn't break. Awesome. There we go. Put the oil pump back together for now. Governor still works just fine. Now I see a little bit of metal in there. You see it down here? In there? Yeah, that's metal. That's a fair bit of it. So, wonder what stories that this is going to tell us. And you can see metal in the oil that's spilled out here. Let me grab a shop towel and clean that up. Here's the camshaft. Oops. And I dropped part of the oil pump. Very nice. There's the camshaft. Compression release still intact and works as intended. Very good. I think this part might actually be worth something. Not sure how much. The lobes are still quite good. Not seeing a lot of wear on them. Maybe a little bit on this one. Aside from that, all metal. This is very nice. Nice example. All right, so 1/4 inch. We can get these out. It's too bad this end is warped. Really is too bad. It's a nice crank. Let's get that piston out. Yeah, look at all this skirt wear. That's terrible. Yeah, lots and lots of scoring. This engine was run low on oil. Or it was overheated. But I'm going to say run low on oil. Something definitely got in there. That's some serious scoring on there. Wow, look at that. Yeah, look at that. That is really bad. My nail's completely catching in that. Oh, the stories the internal parts tell. Rings are all still good though. Don't think this is really worth much. Maybe the connecting rod, but the piston itself, I think she's done. The bore is really scored. It would have to be rehoned. It's pretty burnt. See, look at that down in there. I don't know how well you can see it on camera. I really don't know how well you can see it on camera, but it's pretty bad. So maybe there's more to this story with this engine. Maybe there's a lot more to this story with this little engine. I mean, clearly it's not in very good shape. I mean, the bore's burnt. Piston skirts, they're burnt. So yeah, it was a fun little teardown, but it's really unfortunate that two of the parts that I was really, really hoping that were good aren't. But there are still some pretty good salvageable parts. The connecting rod, that's going to be a good salvageable part. The piston, unfortunately, isn't. And the bore and crank, or well, the bore and the case, yeah, sadly, that's not. Right, let me get all the stuff, lay it all out. That's really unfortunate. It really is unfortunate. I was really hoping that this part, at least this part here, would have been good. But I don't want to rehone a cylinder, and it's a Tecumseh engine. There are still a lot of them out there. So this one is unfortunately going to be sent to scrap. Right, so there we go. That was a fun little teardown. The sump revealed that at some point this engine was run low on oil and left the forbidden glitter in the oil. Valves aren't bad. Can be cleaned up pretty easy. Tappets look good. Camshaft looks good. And for once, got an intact oil pump. It didn't come off the shaft and lose the pump part. And I just finally found something. These, 2 of them. The dowels. In previous videos, I found those dowels out and about because I was beating on the engine to get it off. Well, I should say I was beating on the crankshaft to get it out. And they had obviously popped out of the sump. And I thought they went in the oil pump for some reason, but they don't. Silly me. Crankshaft, unfortunately. It looks pretty good. There is some visible wear, but not too bad. But it's bent. That section down there is a little bit warped. As you saw in the video where it showed that, yes, it is warped. It's hard to tell just looking at it, but yep, it's warped. As for the cylinder bore, yeah, that's too bad. That really is too bad that it's all scored. Like, look at that. You can see it really clearly now. That scoring is really bad. Head looks good other than all the carbon buildup on the other side. And as you can see, those two bolts, yeah, they're very dark from the carbon as well. Piston's toast, but at least the connecting rod's okay. Coil I know works. It does give spark. And of course, an oil dipstick tube. We now have an extra valve cover and another engine control assembly. Oh boy. But aside from that, there are still some usable parts here. There are still definitely some usable parts. But all right, guys, as you see, the engine's all apart. Another PCV valve. I did forget about the PCV valve, but the engine's all apart. It's all laid out. Got to see all the individual pieces, and here they all are now. Another engine taken apart. So if you've made it this far, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. I love to get comments, and I read them all, whether they're early, whether they're later, it doesn't matter. I try to read them all. But unfortunately, no engine to start up this time, just another engine in pieces. But sometimes you need some parts. And here's some parts for future videos. Never know, maybe I need some of these to actually rebuild one. Maybe the valves, maybe the camshaft. Maybe I need another coil. Coil's pretty common. But all right, guys. No spark plug to disconnect this time, but I will definitely see you in the next one.